There we go. We are live in a very hot and sweaty London. All icky. I've got Malike. I've got such like a bad wardrobe because I'm packing, so I'm wearing like a really old. Well, it's a gift, but I'm struggling for a wardrobe right now. But how are you, Malike Sabek? Joining me once again. You are a two-time Facebook Live person for the Elephant and Castle community. So thank you so much for coming back. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great, except for the weather. This wasn't what I was promised when I was moving to London. I was hoping it was going to be gray, cloudy, the perfect weather. This isn't what I signed up for, but it's okay. Things are okay. Thank you for asking.
Tell me, why do you like gray and cloudy weather?
Like cold and crispy weather keeps me sharp and productive, and I just don't like the lethargy that comes with this kind of weather, that I just can't function. And we will see how the conversation will go. Hopefully I will be able to work a few neurons after this under this heat today, but we'll see.
Well, yeah, it will be fine, Malike. You are one of the more qualified people that we've had on. You have, you are, you can go into your background and your education as you introduce yourself. But yeah, I guess maybe just reintroduce yourself to the community. Tell everybody, who you are and what you do.
Okay, so I'm a psychologist and a sociologist. I studied psychology and sociology when I was in Turkey. I did double major, and before that I was studying marketing, but I dropped marketing issue for me all of a sudden and changed my departments to psychology and sociology, because in my early 20s I was having the stereotypical idealistic phase that I was thinking, I don't want to dedicate my life to brands. I want to study human soul, etc., etc. And then fast forward, I did clinical psychology master's degree after I graduated, and I began hosting some workshops on creativity, motivation, willpower, and self-esteem in galleries and in universities and in some centers in Turkey. And approximately 2 years ago, I moved to London. And here I just deliver some corporate trainings, mainly on productivity, well-being, and communication. And with that, I continue my private practice with my clients online. I do psychotherapy and coaching sessions. So that's me in a nutshell.
It's and I remember we spoke to you. We had you on. I think it was just over a year ago. So you were settling into life in London, and this aspect is of a coach and leader, someone who tries to help people not only one-on-one but also in the corporate settings. How has that been going for you over the last year? What's some of the things that you can share that's been happening with you since we last spoke?
So it's going like beyond my expectations, to be honest. I have very valuable clients whom I learned so much from, and I had so much enjoy working with. For a project, I worked with some talented people from Africa and who didn't have the financial ability to make the big breakthrough, but I worked for an organization that was giving them a chance, and I coached those young and talented people. And now I work with Kerry Hand, and I'm an associate coach there. We focus mainly on creativity, and I work with artists one-on-one. And I have some experience in like delivering workshops for restaurant workers and staff and chefs, which was really interesting for me, because there are really interesting dynamics going on there in those kinds of workplaces. And now I have a few clients that I see them online, and meanwhile I continue my workshops.
You say that it's going beyond all your expectations. Do you think that it's kind of post-COVID world where people like yourself are becoming more available and more people are looking at you as resources, to help people? I really want to get into how you work with artists, but also like when you talk about self-esteem and motivation, there are things that And also I think you say as well in your biography that you work with people, with some eating challenges. So these are all things that are very relevant to me today, and I want to get into them. But what is it, do you think, about the kind of the post-COVID time it's given people a little push, I think, towards personal development and wanting to show up for themselves and the people around them. Have you found that in your experience, that people are just wanting to, I suppose, make themselves better?
That's a very good question, and very actually thought-provoking, because in my observation, I can maybe divide, like, how was it like for pre-COVID and post-COVID. I could say confidently people are much, much less ashamed about seeking support and emotional help when it comes to their own issues. So, for example, I have a client who is like in his 70s, and he had a full of life and a very his grandchildren and everything, but all of a sudden he decided to seek out emotional support. And he's saying, okay, if it was me maybe 3-4 years ago, I would be like, oh, it doesn't work, I don't want that, I will take care of this with old-fashioned styles. But now he's like fully okay with it, like, I need help and I'm not ashamed of asking it. And I think people are more aware that their psychological and mental problems can be cured by themselves to a certain point. And maybe this might be the case also. Like, I mean, I believe we are living in a more self-centrist era. Like, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. It has its own disadvantages and advantages, but people are deeply believing that what matters the most is themselves. Because if they're not in a good place, if they are not healthy emotionally or physically, they won't be good to their neighborhoods or friends or relatives also. So they are really aware of this fact. So they are thinking like, okay, I really matter and I can take care of myself. I should take care of myself. Like, I am worth it. And in COVID, we saw that how it is easy to crumble down everything. Like, everything we take granted for may not be there all of a sudden. Like, so people are maybe more risk taking when it comes to that. They are, okay, I am ready to invest some money and time in my well-being, because that's a very valuable thing.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love how you mentioned about your client who, is 70 years old, and he is willing and curious to talk to somebody about emotions. And I think that I would like to, first of all, like we do, I don't think anybody is going to say, no, Nick, you're wrong. When we live in a world today, and for the last, I can definitely say within my lifetime, I was taught that to hold in certain emotions was good, like to not cry, to not ask for help, to suppress emotions because of the people would perceive you as being weak. I can prove that because that's happened in my life. Then in a little bit of research, you can see that how it's happened since definitely post World War II. I always use that as a marker because after the war, we came out of these Churchwellian learnings and ideologies of being real tough and suppressing emotions and not telling people when you're in pain. And it's definitely something that is a problem that sits in the male community, the men that I work with. A lot of people who I read up on and I study talk about how we bottle in emotions and it's unhealthy. So maybe from a psychologist point of view, could you briefly talk about what emotions are meant for in our body and how, if we have a flow of emotions, it regulates us more rather than bottling them up? And then when we do bottle them up, what's the negative consequences?
Another very well question. Before I delve into this question's answer, I also would like to share with you an observation of mine, and many critics would agree. Like, we are living in such times that it's not enough to know about, okay, what should I do? Like, we as human beings have been listening to our parents, clergy, state guys, government, and subcultures and ideologies, and we were like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do, and this and this and this. So I am doing what I have been told, and I should be happy, and it's okay for me. But maybe slowly, but really important way, people are waking up to the fact that okay, I am my own architect of my life, and it's not going to be enough if I listen to my boss, to my friends, to my parents. I should be authentic about my life. So they are seeking more help on how to do that, how to guide, navigate their own desires. So when it comes to emotions, like I want to begin this answer by quoting one of my favorite men on earth, like Carl Gustav Jung. He says, what you resist persists. So when we bottle up emotions, we may think and seem like, okay, I am holding it together, I am in a perfectly good space, and I am functioning, but it's beginning to boil up within ourselves. And I am myself also more into the fact that how body and mind influences each other and works together, because on the contrary, our emotions and thoughts and mental well-being isn't just packed and isolated here in our brains, it's in all our bodies. So what happens when we forbid ourselves to feel and express some emotions? Body never forgets, and it's just registered in ourselves, in our bodies, in our tissues. And the emotion, since it doesn't go anyway, we don't allow it to transform into something else, it just packed in our body, and it comes out as, for example, stiffness in the back, stiffness in the neck, or a constant fatigue, or an anxiety that you don't know where is it coming from. But I really would like everyone to know this, like there is no an evil entity is living inside of us. There's no evil part within ourselves, like trying to create our living experience into hell. Like, okay, I'm going to distort and ruin everything for Melike, so I'm going to cause her a stiff neck. So I'm going to cause her a anxiety or low self-confidence. No, in the body's wisdom, it's causing all these facts, all these phenomena to guide us to a healthier way of living, to a more authentic, to a more productive and lighter way of being. So what emotions are doing, actually, from evolutionary perspective, they are just messengers. When I feel sad or depressed, or even like in a darker mood when I am in, it doesn't mean that it's not working out between me and life and I should just isolate myself and it's really bad. No, it just means that that emotion is there to teach you something about it. So what is it not that you are not satisfied with life? What is it that's holding you from your purpose? So to sum up, the unexpressed emotions might come out as bodily experiences, or in some rigidity to life. So we said what you resist persists. So let's say you are not allowing yourself to be loose, to be flexible, to have fun, to enjoy life, to get pleasure, which is a whole another issue, because we are brought up with the forbiddance of pleasure, like we shouldn't take pleasure, or it's a sin or something like that. So we don't like ourselves seeing like that. So what we do, okay, I'm not that person, I tell myself, so I hide it on the carpet within myself, so it comes out as rigidity, like being angry at people who are having fun, being angry to the things that don't matter. So it always outbursts in some way, and it makes us rigid in our minds. And when we are rigid in our minds, we cannot think flow in a flowing way, and we cannot be as smart as we actually are, because most of our mental energy is spent on suppressing the things that bother us. So it makes sense, like it has so little energy to flourish and make up ideas.
You mentioned when you were talking about emotions and how we can suppress things, and you use it when we're not living in purpose. That was one of the examples you gave, and that gave me this real kind of feeling of like how like what is living in purpose? Another big one, right? And how do we find it? Because like my story is that I'm 52, and I know you know this, but I'll just reiterate it. I was a professional ice hockey player. I was a Sky Sports broadcaster. I was an entrepreneur and a producer and a director in with my own company. And then at 45 years old, I found sobriety. And in finding sobriety, I found a quick little, 12 little protocols that I learned really to not to practice myself, but really so I could teach other people how to use them. So I became a teacher in 12-step recovery. And over 4 years of doing that, I built up some self-esteem, and I finally looked in the mirror and I said, Nick, I'm proud of you after a life of a lot of self-hatred and like a lot of self-pity and regret. So it took me 4 years of sobriety, of helping people in recovery, that I went, oh my gosh, I'm really good at this. The first thing that I really looked in the mirror and go, I'm really good at this, was helping people in recovery. And since that day, I was like, that's my purpose. I it's something that in 12-step recovery you don't get paid for. You can get a coffee maybe from a guy, or a hug, but you really just feel this love and light of helping, of guiding someone so that they can heal themselves. Like you said at the beginning, everyone has the ability themselves. They just need a bit of guidance to do that. So at 40, I'm 52 now, and I've lived, I suppose, about really defining, knowing for the last 2 or 3 years that I'm really good at helping people in recovery. It's my purpose in life. And all around that, my job and running Retribe and doing things like this, like they're all like fillers. They're all things that help lift it up. So it was a long journey for me to find purpose. And I've since discovered through a little bit of research that through our evolution, people were designed to fulfill archetypes. And I'm wondering whether or not so much of the blockages and the pain and the suffering that we have today is because we live in a world that doesn't honor people's evolutionary inbuilt talents or inherent talents that they've just in their DNA have. Some people are great healers, and some people are great storytellers, and some people are great teachers, and some people are great builders. Some people are other great things, but they just don't have the tools in today's modern world to find their purpose. So I'm wondering, I guess, as you said, that's one of the causes of bottling in emotions and not really knowing like where the emotions are there to teach us, is that we haven't found our purpose. So can you talk a little bit about purpose and design and how we find purpose? I suppose I know that's a tough one, Enrique, but you're a smart lady. Go for it.
Go figure this out. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's more of an experiential answer. It should be rather than a cognitive thing. And I am always so happy about hearing your story, so inspiring, and I can fully relate. And I just want to make this little note of when we talk about self-esteem and self-confidence, I am not talking about standing in front of the mirror and saying, I am the best. The others are none, but I am super higher than everyone, and I have this like inflated sense of self. I'm not talking about this. So the real self-esteem comes from something earned. In your case, you are like, okay, I earned this. I earned this peace. I gave my struggles. I was challenged, and I put so many efforts, and I so much worked on myself, and I really earned this self-esteem, and that's really valuable. And I think it's really one of the healthy ways to get some self-esteem and self-confidence. So if we come back to purpose, I want to connect here with a little bit of maybe advertisement, but no. So you said that I also work with people who are struggling with binge eating. So I will just start from there and give you the full answer. So the binge eating or alcohol addiction or gambling or anything that we do when we are under stress is about that we are human beings and we are an evolutionary product. So it will never, ever, ever help to tell someone like with slogans like snap out of it or drink a cinnamon milk when you are craving for cake, because that will never work out. Why? Because when we are under stress, I mean, anyone would agree that's the most time that we are turning to some coping strategies, because no one likes to feel stressed and stuck. But a very paradoxical joke that has been gifted from evolution, like when we're under stress, the first part goes offline in our brains is the prefrontal cortex. And prefrontal cortex is the department that is responsible of keeping us civilized human beings. So it's responsible of motivation, coordination, plan making, decision making. So all the fancy human being qualities that we adore and love, like rationalism. But that is the part that shuts itself down when we are feeling like, okay, I need help. So any advice won't work if it's cognition related. But there is one thing that works actually, and to get this info, we also can benefit from evolutionary psychology. So in our brains, like it consists of 3 strata, and reptilian and mammalian and the prefrontal cortex. And the other brain parts that we possess, it's much more ancient, because when you look at the history, it's like a blink of an eye that we are Homo sapiens on our 2 feet. But more than that, we were animalistic. And therefore, emotions and things are related to our ancient old brain parts work so much better. So I prefer to look at this issue that you are posing as question from more of a pragmatist view. Like, okay, if anyone we ask can reply like, okay, purpose is great, values are great, and that is what we should be after. But I mean, anyone who is experiencing the human life can tell us that should and must never work. We don't like to hear that, even though it is us telling us, okay, you should do this, you should do that. No, I don't like to take orders, let alone from somebody else, but let alone from myself also. So let's drop the shoulds and musts, but let's look at the issue from a pragmatist view. Emotions play a bigger role in our actions, and emotions give meaning to our actions, and meanings give guidance to our neurons. So there's a paradoxical way here, because if you open your brain, you won't see a meaning imprinted there. There are just neurons, but it is the meaning that guides us. So some people might say, okay, I would like to be after approval, or I would like to be after power, after money, after love, after admiration. And these are all values actually. And these guide us. These make us to want to earn more, want to be powerful more. And because these are fueled by emotions, if we can differentiate and understand and get a literacy on our emotions, we can help ourselves more. And about the value and the purpose thing, like let's do a thought experiment. Let's say we are at a primitive tribe, and it's like, say, ancient times, and there was probably a coordination of duties, right? Not one man was responsible of everything, like cooking, hunting, taking care of children, connecting people, combining things, blah, blah, blah. So it was high likely to me, to my understanding, people were selected when based on what they are good at. So I believe they wasn't trying their best to make an engineer mind guy for a shaman role, for example. And if you have been any kids in your life, you can fully tell that all kids have their unique personalities, unique traits, unique advantages and disadvantages. And when they are worked on, it produces so much miracle results. and the kid is happy and the surrounding is happy. But unfortunately, we don't live in such a system that would allow this. I mean, unfortunately, really. But of course, we are free, and it's always up to us if we can create some hidden gardens in our lives where we can practice our values and purposes. So anyone can make up the time for even 5 minutes, and if they are curious about how to find about values, my first advice would be just drop the expectation that it should be a very noble value, because I believe its values aren't hierarchical. So let's say someone can feel embarrassed. Oh no, my value is admiration and I am after admiration, but people and professions tell me this is wrong and not worthy, blah blah blah. I don't agree with this. If that's working for you, you should go after that, and that will give you so much power and energy than you already have. You know, some people are like, for example, like the connection values and family values and helping people. So they feel fully more energized after they perform these values. But you cannot force someone whose value isn't such, like, okay, you should do this because it seems better and it seems so much kinder.
Yeah. And I think as well, like a purpose doesn't have to be like, it's not about your profession, your job. Just because you might be struggling in some way, like and you haven't found your purpose yet, it doesn't mean you have to quit your job and go and become a yoga teacher or something. You know, like I know I'm just using that as an example, a silly example, I suppose. But you know that. So purpose isn't necessarily correlated to your job. It's your values and your beliefs. And I'm now in a place where like I've looked a little bit more about what I'm doing in my work. And one of the things that I'm struggling with, Malik, and is those two words that you have on your bio is motivation and willpower. And I was going to ask you because it's something that, you know, I'm in a good routine now with my daily routine where I get up and I drop the kids off at school, and then I'm 5 minutes and I'm at my office and I'm working, and I'm energized by the fact that, you know, I've got this new routine and it's a new office to work from, and I'm motivated by that. But it's something that in the past and in the last year I've been lacking this kind of the spark, the fire in the belly that I had, and those words of motivation and willpower have been coming to my forethought. I'm like, how do I become more motivated? Like, why am I just kind of eking through the day, just doing what I need to do rather than maybe excelling and pushing myself a little bit more? So I suppose, yeah, what are the differences between motivation and willpower?
So the difference between motivation and willpower could be explained like motivation comes and goes, and it's really, again, very paradoxical. The biggest component of motivation is accepting the fact that you won't have motivation 24/7, because thankfully, we are not robots, we are not stones, we are not machines. So also, I believe, also when I talk about this, everybody should know that I'm not lecturing from a higher place. I'm mostly maybe talking for myself. So maybe being an adult is mostly about maybe being okay with the full package of life. Okay, in life, I won't have parties all the time. I won't have euphorias all the time. I won't see sparkles in people's eyes, but maybe sometimes hatred and some stuckness, those kind of things. So I believe part of being a functioning adult comes from the accepting that it won't be always love and joy and sunshine, and I won't always feel up for it, because hopefully people who are listening to this aren't on drugs or something like that. So I don't feel all the time, I want to do everything in my to-do list. No, they won't. So motivation, I would distinguish it as like maybe being more humble about yourself, and being more accepting about yourself and the conditions of life. It's just like maybe selecting a partner, you know. In theory, we always say, oh, yeah, no one is perfect. There is no one going to be perfect for me, blah, blah. In theory, we say this, but when it comes to reality, we are always, okay, this is disadvantage, this is disadvantage. But it all comes down to the fact that, okay, this person has its disadvantages and advantages, and I am okay with the whole package. So it comes up. It's the same thing with our goals and plans. Like, okay, some days I won't feel like doing it. Okay, some days I will really hate it, or some days I will feel tired. But will it be relevant to those? And if so, what are my backup plans? My friend had told me once, like, the greatest diets are written when you are full, like, because it's so easy to write a diet when you are not feeling hungry. Okay, I will just eat that and it will be okay. But when it is that time when you are literally feeling hungry and you are losing your sense of self because of cravings, you should be able to create yourself some backup plans. Okay, when this happens, what will Melike do? Because I believe caring for yourself means, rather than ordering yourself a to-do list, okay, give me career, give me relationships, give me socialization, give me money, Melike. If, let's say, I'm giving an example of myself, this isn't self-care. This isn't wanting the best for yourself. This is just ordering and lecturing yourself from a very rude place. The self-care would be, okay, how can I hold your hand when you are feeling down? Okay, how can I come up with some realistic and sustainable backup plans when you don't feel like that? So I would say like that. But also, I also like the fact that, you know, generally in daily routine, obviously we are beings that's functioning on the past, like getting on top of the experiences we had in life. So for example, if we have lots of heartbreaks, whether we like it or not, we will react accordingly, because that's our past, that's our conditioning, that's the mold that we were molded. But I believe it might be also helpful that, rather than coming from past, call yourself from the future. Like, okay, go a few weeks more, go a few weeks, years later, and imagine a good place for yourself, again, realistic and sustainable, and just call yourself from the future. Okay, Melike, I know you are struggling, but you can do it. Like being a enthusiastic parent to yourself, or a coach that who can see the potential in yourself. So I think it would be really helpful for people to see their potential inside. Okay, what am I capable of, and how can I help myself achieve this, and which package that I am okay with that, like which disadvantages and difficult emotions and difficulty in finding some mental resources. So maybe in a nutshell, the word could be realistic.
I like it.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, it appears like our world is more prone to order rather than chaos. Because if it was otherwise, we would just be distracted, like, right?
Yeah.
And beings and life in itself is more prone to flourishing, giving fruit, growing, expanding. Like, look at plants, look at animals, and look at how develops a child. So I think this might be one of the rules of life. It's more prone to the betterness rather than distractiveness, and rather than stuckness. Just keep yourself reminding those facts.
Yeah. And I think when like motivation, like you said, it isn't something that happens all of the time. And life is full of, it's just like living on an ocean. It's moving up and down all of the time. And sometimes it's going to be white, little peaky waves, and sometimes it's going to be calm. But it's there to live, to flourish, and it's where I find myself. And if I find myself, and I love what you said earlier, where we say emotions are here to teach us. So fear is something that comes up for me quite a bit. And if I feel fearful about economic situation, or the fact that I've just moved countries, I know I'm in London now, but I've just moved countries, the fact that I got married a few months ago and I'm a stepdad to 3 boys, and I'm scared that I'm going to mess up. And I'm scared that they don't, that my dad's teachings come out of me sometimes. And I'm particularly hard on the 14-year-old. And, so all of these fears can come out. And I've always got to realize that I'm a human. I'm going to make mistakes. And it's in making these mistakes that I can learn. And I can admit that, but I'm in a place in my life now where I can do that. But a few years ago, I will sidestep straight to the fact too, that if I'm in a stressful situation nowadays, I have been hitting the chocolate bars, and this isn't something that I used to do, and if I did, I could have a chocolate bar and it would last me a full day or even 2 days. But some fear has come up in me lately and the last month, and I have gotten a chocolate bar, and normally I would chew it, the chocolate, let it melt in my mouth, savor it, enjoy it. All of a sudden lately, I'm like, go swallow it, go swallow it. It's giving me it's trying to fill something, and I recognize it, but I'm still trying to process through it. What is it there to teach me? Why am I looking for that exterior? What am I trying to fill? And it does always center or bring me down to the fact that I need to do some work on myself. Some more meditation, eat better, eat a little bit more healthy, have a little bit more routine, but also understanding that a heck of a lot has happened in my life recently. So I'm kind to myself, knowing that this is it's part of those cycles of ups and downs. And this is why I'm great there's people like you out there, that you can work with people to help to guide them through these moments and to give them these suggestions and the helpful hints to navigate these waters, not alone, but together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. But at this point, maybe if may I kindly like say something about the chocolates and those kind of stuff, because
yes, please, yeah.
All of us are doing that. I would just love to remove this assumption from people, whether they acquired it subconsciously or consciously, that okay, if I do enough work, if I force myself enough, I will be like an, in quote, I'm telling this, angel like, I will be 100% pure and everything will go super well. So this is an illusion, and I blame some of the new age techniques for that, because I mean, this is just my personal humble opinion. I think we shouldn't shame ourselves just because one chocolate. I mean, you are not fisting the walls when you are feeling stressed, or you are not suffocating people around you or doing something. I mean, it's just one chocolate. I mean, obviously, I don't know what you are going through or how it is affecting you. But I would just really kindly remind people who are watching or listening to this, like, give yourself some slack, like, okay, we are human at the end of the day. I'm not using this as an opt-out, like, okay, you are human, you are allowed to do anything, blah, blah, not. But sometimes we just need some bribery from ourselves, like, and I know all of us would love to imagine ourselves like, okay, at this day, I am waking up with full energy. I am this productive. I am this loving. I am this caring, and blah, blah. And before bed, I am doing my meditation, my self-reflective questions. But this is something making myself, to begin with, alienating from myself, because I'm not a project that I constantly need to work on. Like, this should be maybe a rebellion act for the healing strategies that we encounter in our lives. Like, I refuse to be a project to myself, and I really would love if more people be more comfortable about themselves when it comes to this, if it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think beating yourself up over having 2 donuts instead of 1 it doesn't help. But I think asking yourself why why the 2 donuts, and the, like, as you mentioned, like the meditation and the daily reflection, the writing, the journaling, the self-reflection about your day, being able to recognize that there are challenges that and obstacles we're going to face throughout the day. And sometimes they're going to bring up feelings of, I'm going to have 2 donuts tonight instead of 1. But that isn't it's there like more as a teacher and more of something to reflect on and say, and like I do it with my eldest. It's like, I always find it like I'm being too hard, like something will come up, and then I'll sit back, I'll reflect on it. Nick, you're being too hard on the kid. you're trying too much, you know, and in it, he's a 14-year-old. He's hearing me just kind of constantly correct him, and that, I think it's just a way of teaching me, Nick, just be a little bit more soft on him, but also on yourself, because that's the way my dad taught me. And maybe I need to unlearn that, because maybe my dad tried his best, but maybe that way wasn't the best way to do it. Now, I know we're running out of time, so we just have time for another quick question. And it was something that you said at the beginning when you talked about how your work is really, it's coming along, it's doing really well, and you're getting a lot from it personally. So this is what I always like to know, is people like yourself, coaches and psychologists who help a lot of people, they always are perceived as someone who's doing all of the helping. And what do you get out of it? So I know that people that you work with, like I say, when I work with a guy, you know, he can't hug me, he can't pay me, but it gives me this just feeling. So what has this line of work and this kind of, you know, since you moved to London, how is it fulfilling you? Like, what is it, how are you being polished, and how is it lighting you up?
That's a very good question. First, it gives me the sense of connection and belonging. Like, okay, I'm talking with another human being, fellow, and we have a connection within ourselves. And, you know, maybe it's more like this. If we think about it, you know, everybody must have heard the phrase of your life is run by your subconscious. That's a fact that everyone agrees at some level. And if you think about it, our subconscious doesn't have an idea of the other. So my subconscious is only being aware of me. So in a weird layer, I just perceive the people I interact or guide with. I don't like to use the word help, because I'm not in a superior place to help them, and they are not broken that needs to be fixed. So in my understanding, you know, obviously I didn't choose to born in Turkey. I didn't choose to born as a woman. And this year I didn't choose my socioeconomic level or culture or interest or tendencies or genetics, anything. So I am reminding myself I could be that person, and I could have like look at life from that person's point of views, and they have lots of baggages. So I am like, okay, this is maybe another perspective or an aspect of myself that I don't have a fully access with. And I'm just thinking, okay, I could have been him, I could have been her, and they could have been me. So it's just like helping each other with limited information about the life and the reality and everything. And I really believe and know people deserve venting, people deserve telling about themselves, telling about their problems, and even allowing a space for them to be heard, to be seen, to be understood. It's so valuable. And I just remind myself, back in the time, I was really grateful when people were giving me the space about it and people were guiding me about those. And I just feel on an empathetic level, like, yeah, this is a time good spent for myself.
Yeah. I often end some talks that I do, Malike, with a little story that I saw a documentary series called The Pyramid Codes on Netflix. I don't think it's on Netflix anymore. I think it's on YouTube. It's a 6-part series. It's a fairly low budget. And it's narrated by this historian, and she tells this little story in one of the episodes about these Egyptian hieroglyphs. And she says, note that the gods all have left hands. And she goes, the left hand is for giving, is for bestowing, and only gods can give, they can't receive, so they all have left hands. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool, the gods give. And then I was like, well, we have 2 hands, the right hand and the left hand. And then further on, she says the right hand is for receiving. And the moment I saw it, I just saw all of humanity with the left hand, of all of their gifts, their light, their purpose, just their talents, and these little lights on their hands, and they're just held out there, ready for someone to grab a hold and to say, help me, and to take that. And so for everybody that I talk to, I'm like, you know, we all want to give, but we also have to receive. We also need that ability to say, you know, help me to somebody, because if you can't, then you're denying someone their light. And I just thought about, you know, for people like yourself and you know, that do you ever say help me to somebody? Do you ever use your right hand and grab a hold and get support?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And it's super valuable, and it's one of the greatest luxuries in my life, having people around me that
Mm.
I can do that without thinking about, oh, what will they think? Oh, will it come back to me? Oh, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I just can leave myself in their space, and I just say,
Mm.
take care of me. I have this trouble, this issue, and etc. So I think it's a big luxury to have that opportunity, right?
Yes, it is. And it's a wonderful way to end our little chat. I'm so glad that you could come back again. It was really great talking to you, Malike. And how can people get in touch with you if they want to chat with you? Well, you can also send me all of your links and I'll put them in the Facebook feed too, but maybe you can just remind people.
Okay, I can send them to you. So they can write my name, Melike Sabak, on Instagram. They might find it. And I have built this new company for myself. It's called Sourcelux. If they
Mhm.
write in Instagram, maybe they will find it. I am not sure, but it's called Sourcelux. And they can reach me from melikesabak@gmail.com always. And I would love to hear if you are watching this and if you have some questions or some objections or some doubts. And I always appreciate like exchanging ideas. You don't have to get a service from
Mm.
me, just reach out. uh, I would love to talk with people who are sharing the same interests and curiosity.
Mm.
And thank you so much for your time, Nick. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, and big congratulations on your wedding and your three-step dad experience.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
sounds really exciting, and I'm really sure it will work out great for you.
Thank you so much, Malika. I really appreciate it. I really super appreciate your time today. I know you're really busy, but thanks for fitting us in. And we'll talk soon. And thanks everybody at the community for joining us once again. I'll have another Retribe Live, not this coming Tuesday, but the following Tuesday with an amazing person as well. So until then, from all of us, it's bye for now.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Thanks.